Welcome to Discovery Computer Training's Macromedia Fireworks MX training video. We're going to first open up and we're going to look at the Macromedia Fireworks environment. We have our menu bar at the top. We have several toolbars. We have a main toolbar here. We have some panels here on the right hand side. In the middle here we have what's called the document window, and on the left hand side we've got the toolbox. Top of the screen we have our drop down menu. Below that we have our main toolbar, and just below that we have our document window. And when we look to the bottom corner of the document window, we have our image editing mode, where we have our animation controller, which allows you to play back frame animations that you've created. And then beside that we have what's called the display information, which displays the document size and the document magnification beside it. We can click on it to see all the information. We've got the width, the height, and the resolution. And then beside it we've got the different magnifications, where we can quickly change between different magnifications of the current object that we're working on. The toolbox on the left hand side is divided by selection tools, editing tools, web tools, we've got our viewing tools, we've got color options, and we've got the screen mode. We're going to start by going over all the different tools in the toolbox on the left hand side. The first tool that we're looking at is the pointer tool, and as we notice there's a little black triangle in the bottom right hand corner of this particular tool. We can select that simply by left clicking on our mouse, and what this does is this opens up a selection of two different tools that we're able to select. We've got a regular pointer tool, which is already selected by default. We can see that with the check mark. And we've got our selection tool, our from behind, which if we select automatically changes the tool that we've got in our toolbar here to be the select behind tool. The way the select behind tool works is when we go over our image we see that there's an outline of a red circle, which means that this is hidden behind our image that we're seeing right now. If I move it, I see that I've got the image over here of a yellow circle that was simply sitting behind it. With our regular pointer tool, if we just have the image over top of it, we have no way of selecting that particular image that's behind it. Beside it we've got a sub-selection tool, and the way that the sub-selection tool works is it gives us a number of points that we're able to work with, and we can simply select them, click on top of them, hold the mouse key down, and we're able to manipulate the different image with this particular sub-selection tool. So this gives us the ability to manipulate the image. Beside that we've got the scaling tool. See that the scaling tool also has a small black triangle in the bottom right hand corner. We're able to open up and see that there's a different selection of scaling tools. We've got a skewing tool and a distorting tool. What the scaling tool does is we would have to simply select on our image. We see that once we make the selection of the scaling tool, we automatically get a box around the scaling tool. This gives us the ability to shrink and also enlarge the particular image that we're working with. I'm just going to move the other one out of the way for now, and we're going to work with what used to be the yellow circle. We're also able to do a rotation with this tool, where we would simply go over the corners. We see a half circle with an arrow that shows up beside it, and this tells us that we're able to do our rotation. The rotation is going to be around the center point, which is a dot that appears in the center of the box. We're able to maneuver this to wherever we need to, and as we notice, the rotation then rotates around wherever this particular center point is. As we move the center point, we see that the rotation rotates around a different area of the particular image. With the skewing tool, our choices have changed. It looks similar to the same as the original tool, the resizing tool, but if we select one of the corners, we see that the skewing tool either opens or closes it larger or smaller depending on how we're making our selection to a particular area. If we select the side dots, we're able to maneuver what area the center point is. Once again, we are able to rotate from that center point, and we're able to work with the skewing tool to change the look of this particular image that we're working on. The last one is the Distort Tool, and the way that this is working, it's just simply distorting the image, and we're able to make our selection, but it only distorts one corner, whereas when we were using the skewing tool, we were able to distort both corners at the same time. We are also able to work with fireworks through the keyboard. We can see that when we select the particular tool in the toolbox, we get a selection of a V or an O. If I want to change quickly back to the scaling tool, I don't need to work with my pointer. I can simply press the Q key on the keyboard, and this automatically selects the particular tool that's attached to that key. Beside the resizing tool, we've got the crop tool, or C on the keyboard. And the way that this works is this is able to crop out a certain area. We would go on top of our image, create the area that we want cropped out. We could select it by double clicking the mouse, and we see that the particular selected area that we cropped out has now been placed in a separate image altogether with just the cropped out area. Again, this was just a simple double click of the mouse after I've cropped out the particular area. I'm just going to go back to our original image here that we were working with. Similar to the crop tool, we also have the export area tool. And the way that this works is make our selection the same as we did with the crop tool. We double click on top of the area that we want to crop, presents us with an export preview. This is the particular image that we're going to be exporting right now. We can change the properties of it, which we're going to go over later on. And if we want to export this particular image, we could simply select export, and this would export the image out. So we could go ahead and we could select export, and we see that automatically we're presented with a file name, the image type, and we're able to save it on our hard drive wherever we need to. And then we would simply select save. We've created a separate image file with this particular image that we've cropped out. That we've got the Marquee Tool, or the M, on the keyboard. The Marquee Tool is good for creating things as hotspots and for navigation bars and that sort of thing. Works similar to the cropping tool. We make our selection, but we're given more options. When we right click on top of the area that we've selected, we see that more information opens up in our properties window. We're given an option to edit, magnification. We're able to crop it also using the Marquee Tool. And we've got a whole bunch of different options that we're able to work with the Marquee Tool. For Marquee, we've got also an oval Marquee Tool, and then we've got the rectangular Marquee Tool. So we have a choice of the two different Marquee tools that we're able to work with and use as we need to. Beside the Marquee Tool on the right hand side, we've got the Lasso. And the way that the Lasso works, we've got a Polygon Lasso Tool and just the regular Lasso Tool, or L on your keyboard. And we could make an area that we want to make the selection. And similar to the Marquee, we're able to select this particular area. And we could open up and we could crop it if we needed to. As we see that we've cropped this particular area out of the image. And right clicking on this opens up the same window as we did have with the Marquee, and we're able to make different selections as we need to. The Lasso Tool has two options. We've got the Polygon Lasso Tool, which is going to give us some straight edges instead of the wavy edges we had with the simple Lasso Tool. We can right click on it and we're presented with the same options as we had before. We're given options to better modify our image. We've got one here where we've got the modify the marquee, where we're able to select the inverse of it. We're able to feather, expand, contract, border, and smooth. So I'm going to simply select to expand. It asks us a question about expand by how many pixels. So we're just going to leave it at 10 pixels and select OK. And as we can see, the particular area that we were selecting has now expanded by 10 pixels on each edge to make a larger selection area. With this, we're also able to select modify marquee, and we're able to contract it, change the border, and smooth it. We can select smooth, which smooths our selection by whatever pixels we've selected to make smooth. The next selection tool that we have is the magic wand, or W on your keyboard. Selecting this, we can select a particular area of the image, and it's going to select points that are similar. We can find a better example as we work with our image here, where we're able to select the magic wand, and as we can see, when we click over a certain area, we see the area once again, the Marquee tool, and it's selected a similar area that's all yellow in color, and it's selected the borders for us. We're able to adjust this by right clicking on our selection. We can modify the marquee by either the border, by smooth. We can select the inverse, or we can feather it. If we select a border and selecting OK, we see that the border has been expanded and our particular crop has been made here. So if we want to crop out a particular color, we would be using the magic wand. We could simply select it, and we can cut it if we needed to, and then we can go ahead and we can paste, and we see the area that we've pasted is going to be now the same as the area that we had selected with our magic wand. Next, we're going to move on to the actual editing tools. We're able to draw and manipulate different objects on our document window. The first tool that we're going to be looking at is the brush tool, which we can simply select or press B on the keyboard. We see the particular color that the brush tool is going to be. We would hold down the left mouse button and we're able to draw with our brush tool. Now, to combine some effects between the different marquees and the brush tools, I'm going to make a selection with the wand tool. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the brush tool, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a line across the document. And we're going to see the way that the Marquee tool works is that only our particular selected area is the area that we're able to draw upon. And as we can see, it's only the inside D, or the area selected by our wand, that we're able to draw into. We can make more selections if we need to. We can make a selection for the whole document, and once again we draw across it, and we see that the particular area that we've got selected, because now we have everything but the yellow selected, we have the black area selected, and we can see as we draw across, it doesn't harm our area that we're working with that's not selected by the particular marquee. So this is one way to kind of work with both together in a simple form. Next, we've got the pencil tool, which works very similar to the way that the other tool worked. And we see that the pencil tool works pretty much the same way as the brush tool worked. If we open up our properties window at the bottom of the screen here, we see that it shows us which particular tool we've selected. We're able to have the auto erase. We're also able to have the anti-alias, which smooths the edges, and we've got preserve transparency, where we're able to preserve the transparency. We're also able to adjust how our properties or attributes of the particular pencil tool that we're working with, and we see that now we're at 40%. So this particular tool now is at 40%, whereas when we move it to 100, we see that it is a lot more brighter and we're able to see it much better. We've got a lot of options that we're presented with for the different modes. We've even got one at the bottom for erasing, where we're able to see that as I draw over it, it's erasing this particular image, and it's no longer drawing the line, it's simply erasing the line that we were working with. And we see here where I've erased the yellow part, that's where we have our image that's underneath. So if we were to select off of this and we move this particular object, we see the erased part, and we see that we're able to see right through it. The brush tool has some more options where we're able to adjust the color the same as we were with the pencil tool. We're able to adjust the thickness of the brush. We've got different brush stroke styles that we're able to work with. We've got basic, airbrush, calligraphy, charcoal, crayon, felt tip, oil, pencil, watercolor, random, and unnatural, where we've got a whole bunch of different selections of different brush strokes we're able to have. I simply selected here one at random. This one is called toothpaste, and as we see, we're able to draw with it. We're able to adjust the edge also that we're using, and we see that as we adjust the edge, it changes a little bit of the display. We've also able to adjust the texture. By default it's on green, but depending on what kind of texture we want to select, we can see there's a slight difference in the texture that we were using, and then we've got the percentage of the texture that we want to use. If we want to go to 100%, we see that the oil slick texture is now coming out. If I want to go down to 0%, we're going to see that the oil slick texture is gone, and that we're using 0% of the oil slick texture. We've also got the different modes. We've also got the alpha here, where we're able to make it more transparent. We can adjust it as we did with the pencil, where we've got more alpha and less alpha. We've got an area where we can preserve the transparency. So this allows us to paint only inside of pixels that are already existing. If we check this off, we see that I'm no longer able to paint where the pixels where it's transparent. The transparency is signified by the gray and white squares that are behind, meaning that there is no background for this particular image that I'm working on, and therefore it is preserving the transparency. Whereas we have the white part here, which is not transparent, and this doesn't represent the background of the image. This is one way to work with the brush tool. After that, we've got the erasing tool, or E, on your keyboard. We see that in the properties in the eraser tool, we've got the different size of the eraser tool that is available to us, signified by the circle on our document window here. We've got the edge where we're able to have softness, and we're able to adjust it. So if we're at 0, we have a simple 0, no feathered edge. Whereas when we adjust the edge to 70, we see that part of the edge still remains, and that we're not fully erasing everything right to the edge. We're able to change from a round eraser to the square eraser, and we see the way that the square eraser works. And we're given the option for the alpha, so we could only erase partly and partly erase through alpha, not erasing the entire image, and this would be kind of depending on how we want to blend it in with the rest of the document that we were working with. The next tool, the blurring tool, is best demonstrated if we use a picture. So we've got one here that we're just going to be using. We'll just bring it down to 100%, and we see that the way the blur tool works is it's blurring the image. Exactly what the name says. We've got a sharpening tool. If we've got an area we want to sharpen, we're able to do so. Probably better viewed if we enlarge the picture a little bit, and we can see that when we go over this particular area, the sharpening tool sharpens the image, and we're able to clear up a little bit of the image as we need to. We've got in the properties, we're able to adjust the size, the shape. We're able to adjust the edge to having a feathered edge or no edge at all. depending on what we needed to with what we were working with. And we've got the intensity, which we can also adjust, and this adjusts the intensity of the sharpening tool. Then when we shrink it back down to 100%, we see that the sharpening tool has indeed sharpened up our image a little bit. We've got the dodge tool, and the way that this works is we've got the properties down here, once again the size, the edge, the different shape, and we've got a choice between shadows, midtones, and highlights. So this is one way we can kind of, if we want to brighten up a certain area, we could be using this tool. Depending on the effect that we were looking for, we could be able to use this tool. And we see that right now what it's doing, it's taking out the background from the buildings, and we're able to see the buildings much clearer. And same with the darker areas when we go over them, and we see that right now we're able to brighten up our picture a little bit. After that, we've got the burn tool, and what this does is this has the opposite effect, where it's making kind of a burned effect, and it's making the image a little bit darker. And we've got the same thing once again. We've got the shadows, midtones, and highlights. So if we want to create a shadowed area here, we're able to do so with these particular tools. After that, we've got the smudge tool, and what this is going to do, this just simply smudges our picture. So if we had a particular color that we wanted to bring along, we could work with it and we could smudge it across. And what I'm doing right now, I'm just clicking on it, holding the mouse down, and that allows me the smudge effect that I need. And then of course we've got the different colors that we're able to adjust here for the smudge effect. We see that it starts out red and then it smudges across with the different colors. We can uncheck this and we see that we're no longer able to select the red. It doesn't automatically start with the red. After that, we've got our rubber stamp tool. So initially what we want to do, we want to create a point that we're going to be creating the rubber stamp from. I want to go over a certain area. I want to click on the image that I want to work with, and we can see that as I click, I'm able to have kind of this blue area that shows up. So once again, we select the smudge tool, we select an area we click on. I'm just going to select maybe this image over here. We see that there's kind of like a blue crosshairs that show up, and then what you notice now that as I use the rubber stamp, it recreates the same image that I have on the left hand side, and I can see the crosshairs moving, and I'm able to recreate this image over here. I can adjust the size of it to the size that I'm creating, the edge. I'm also able to adjust the different edge that I'm going to be working with, and wherever I'm starting with, this is where the center of the crosshairs is. I'm able to source align it where I can see that now the crosshairs are moving and it's identical to my movement with my mouse key. I'm just holding it down. We're able to check the entire document, uncheck the source align, and we see now that we're working with the same thing as the source align, where we're got the source in pixels. The next tool that we're looking at is the eyedrop tool, and this is used for selecting colors. What we would do, we would simply select it, and we could go anywhere on our image and we can copy that particular color. Over here we see that the paint bucket color has turned yellow. We can select the pencil area here. We select it and we see that we can change the color depending on the color that we're going over, and we just simply select it by pressing the left mouse key. After that, we've got the paint bucket tool. With the paint bucket tool, we're able to simply select an area and it fills the color of the particular area that we select. We see here that we don't have any tolerance set up, and what the tolerance does, that's how similar the particular color pixels must be to be filled. So I'm going to go ahead and reverse this. And I'm going to check off to 255 tolerance. And we see what happens, that because the tolerance is set to 255, it automatically fills the entire area. This works the same way if we check off fill selection. We see that we're no longer able to select tolerance. And when we press the left mouse key to fill it, it'll automatically fill the entire selected area. If we check off preserve transparency, once again the transparent area will be preserved. So we can check off this. And if we move the tolerance down, we see that it only selects the area with pixels that were similar in color. Below the paint bucket tool, we have the gradient tool. If we select this, what this does, it works very similar to the paint bucket tool, but it gives us an area to start and an area to finish the gradient. So we can see the way the gradient works, similar to the paint. It's the same thing, that it fills in the selected area. We can fill the selection if we like, which the selection was the entire square. We also have our option to preserve the transparency.